The sea was calm that evening. The kind of calm that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. The waves roll in slow and even, brushing against the black rocks that surrounded the island, a rhythm that had never really changed. Elias sat on the edge of the old wooden dock, a cup of lukewarm tea in his hand. The steam had stopped rising a while ago, but he didn't mind. He liked the way the cup felt in his palms, solid, warm in places, chipped on the rim. In front of him, the sea stretched endlessly, its surface reflecting the faint shimmer of the setting sun. Behind him, the tall lighthouse stood silent, like a watchful guardian carved out of stone. He had lived here for 12 years. 12 quiet years of tides and light, of keeping watch and being unseen. Every evening, just before the sun disappeared, Elias would climb the spiral stairs to light the great lamp, the heart of the island. He would listen to the steady hum of the mechanism as the flame caught, turning the huge lens into a slow, graceful rotation of golden light. It was a simple duty, but it was his. And somewhere deep down, he believed that as long as the light kept turning, he still had a purpose. That night, the wind shifted. It came from the north, bringing with it the faint scent of pine and rain, strange, because there were no trees on the island. Only the sea and the stones and the gulls that circled lazily overhead. Elias noticed it first as a flicker on the horizon. A soft pulse. Barely visible at first. He leaned forward, squinting into the dim. The pulse came again, faint, rhythmic, like a distant heartbeat. He frowned. No ship should be there. Not at this hour. He checked the logbook inside the tower, no scheduled routes, no expected visitors. The nearest harbor was 20 miles away. And yet, there it was again. A light. Blink. Pause. Blink, blink. Pause. It was too slow for a signal flare, too deliberate to be chance. Elias felt his heartbeat quicken, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He turned the handle of the great telescope that faced the sea, adjusting it until the horizon came into view. The light was still there. A tiny speck of gold floating in the darkening blue, blinking in a rhythm he couldn't quite read. He whispered to himself, "What are you trying to say?" For a long while he stood there, watching, as the night deepened and the stars began to bloom above him. Eventually the light faded, swallowed by the dark. The next morning, Elias couldn't stop thinking about it. He kept replaying the pattern in his head while tending to the lighthouse. Blink. Pause. Blink, blink. Pause. He scribbled it in his logbook, then next to it, possible signal. Origin unknown. His handwriting was neat but faint, the ink had started to dry out months ago, and the replacement shipment hadn't arrived yet. Not that it mattered much. No one read his logs anymore. He tried to shake it off, to return to the rhythm of his days. He polished the brass instruments, swept the dust from the stairs, refilled the oil in the lamp. Routine. Always routine. But by evening, as the sun fell low again, he found himself sitting on the dock, same place, same chipped cup of tea, eyes locked on the horizon. He told himself he was only checking for safety. But when the first faint flicker appeared again, he felt that small rush in his chest, the quiet thrill of being seen. Blink. Pause. Blink, blink. Pause. He tried counting the seconds. Maybe it was Morse code, though it had been years since he'd used it. He jotted down what he could remember. Dash. The pattern didn't make sense. Not yet. The light continued for 10 minutes. then 15. And then, like the night before, it simply stopped. The following days passed in quiet restlessness. He found himself walking more often to the north shore, where the wind carried the smell of pine. He stared across the water, wondering what could be out there. He thought about radioing the mainland, but his transmitter had been unreliable since the last storm, a faint static hum and nothing more. Besides, he wasn't sure what he'd say. A light is blinking at me. They'd think he was lonely. And maybe he was. At night, he dreamed of the sea, endless and calm, but full of whispers. When he woke, he sometimes thought he could still hear them, soft as the tide. Keep watching. On the fifth night, something changed. The light appeared again, brighter now, closer, maybe. Elias climbed to the top of the tower, the great lamp already turning above him, its beam sweeping over the waves. He leaned out through the hatch, the cold air biting his face. The pattern had shifted. Blink, blink. Pause. Blink. Pause. Blink, blink, blink. He repeated it under his breath, his lips moving with each pulse. He wrote it down. Compared it with his notes. Then it hit him, the pattern wasn't random. It wasn't even Morse code. It was mirroring his own light. The intervals matched the rotation of the lighthouse itself, almost exactly, as if someone, far away, was watching him and replying in kind. For the first time in years, Elias felt something like wonder. Someone, or something, was talking back. He barely slept that night. Every creak of the waves, every distant cry of a gull, every flicker from the window caught his attention. When dawn came, he went outside and walked the rocky path along the shore. The tide had gone out, leaving pools of seawater that mirrored the pale sky. He found himself standing before an old rowboat, half buried in sand. He hadn't used it in years. The wood was dry, cracked in places, but still held shape. He ran a hand along its edge, the salt rough against his fingertips. Maybe tomorrow, he murmured. He wasn't sure what he meant, to repair it, or to use it. But the thought lingered like a seed in his mind. That evening, as the light began again, Elias watched it for a long time. He tried to ignore the pull he felt, but something inside him, a voice quieter than thought, kept whispering, "You don't have to stay." Later that night, as he sat inside the lighthouse writing in his journal, the wind began to rise. The flame of his oil lamp flickered, shadows stretching across the stone walls. He wrote, "If the light comes again tomorrow, I will go." He stared at the words for a while, unsure if he meant them. Then he closed the book, blew out the lamp, and listened to the sea until he drifted into sleep. When he awoke, the air felt different. Still, but heavy, like the pause before a storm. He climbed the steps to the lantern room and looked out. The sea was flat as glass. And there, just beyond the edge of the morning mist, he saw it again, the light. Closer now. Brighter? It blinked once, long and slow. Then stopped. Elias's breath caught. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a shape, a small silhouette moving across the horizon. A figure. A boat. He couldn't tell. Then the fog swallowed it whole. He went down to the shore, almost without thinking. The old rowboat waited there, half in the water. He ran his hands along the oars, tested their weight. They creaked, but held. For a long time, he just stood there, listening to the soft lap of the tide. He looked back toward the lighthouse, tall, silent, unmoving. Then back to the open sea, where the light had been. The choice hung in the air like the scent of rain. Stay. Or follow. He whispered to himself, if it shines again tonight, I'll go. That night, as the horizon dimmed into deep blue, the first flicker appeared. Stronger than before. Steady. Patient. Waiting. Elias tightened his coat, checked the oil lamp he'd packed, and stepped into the rowboat. The wood groaned beneath him, but held. He pushed off the shore, oars cutting into the black water with slow, deliberate rhythm. Behind him, the great light of the tower kept turning, a golden eye sweeping the sea. Ahead, the small mysterious glow pulsed softly in the dark. And for the first time in 12 years, Elias rowed towards something unknown. The oars entered the water with the softest of sounds, a hush, a whisper, a careful folding of sea around wood. Elias rowed in a slow rhythm that matched his breath, pull. Glide. Pull. Glide. Behind him, the lighthouse turned and turned, a patient guardian whose gold kept sweeping the horizon with gentle insistence. Ahead, the small light pulsed, not bright enough to dazzle, not dim enough to ignore. It existed in that quiet space where curiosity and comfort touch. The night was kind. The wind lay low, and the sea, though dark, behaved like a vast sleeping creature whose exhale rose and fell beneath the boat. Elias kept his eyes mostly on the water just in front of him, something he'd learned from years on the island. If you stare too long at the distance, your mind rushes ahead of your body and the journey unravels. Better to watch the near things, the blade of the oar entering the black, the clear oval of water disturbed by the pull, the faint wake that trailed like a silk ribbon behind the stern. He paused to adjust the lantern he'd tied to the bow, more for the boat than for himself. The flame expanded, then settled into a warm, steady glow. He listened to it, the gentle tick of heat moving air through glass. It reassured him. He had once believed that all light was the same, that it was only a matter of brightness and reach, but he knew now that each flame carried its own temperament. The great lamp of the lighthouse was noble, tireless, his small oil lantern was companionable, domestic, almost shy. "Keep me honest," he said softly to the lantern, and smiled at the way the light trembled as if acknowledging the task. The pulsing glow on the horizon gave no sign of impatience. It didn't beckon, it didn't command. It simply persisted. Elias found that he liked that about it. He rode toward the pulse as one might walk toward a voice in the next room, unhurried, attentive, prepared to turn back if the voice grew sharp or strange. Minutes became a pattern of breath and water. He lost track of time. The mind does that on open sea, it stops measuring and starts listening. He listened to the small run of water along the hull, the occasional click of oarlock against metal, the distant calling of a gull who had changed its mind about sleep. Above, the stars gathered themselves, more of them than he remembered, as if the sky had thrown a net and drawn them closer just for this crossing. He reached for the little compass in his coat pocket and flipped it open. The needle hovered, then paused with indecisive quivering. North. Or near enough? He glanced at the light, it sat in the north-northeast, more east with every stroke. He tapped the brass lid. The needle shivered, swung briefly, then came to rest again. He looked at the sea. He looked at the sky. He closed the compass and slipped it back. Tonight, he thought, the faithful things are not the measured ones. The first hour of rowing, if it was an hour, passed like a quiet paragraph, balanced and complete. Then, without warning, the mist arrived. Not a wall, but a gradual silvering of the air, a lifting of the sea into the sky and the sky into the sea until the edges of both went soft. Elias slowed, careful. The light ahead blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again, like a heartbeat behind a veil. Easy, he told himself, as if he were speaking to a skittish horse. The mist breathed. The lantern on the bow drew a small circle of amber on the water, intimate and sure. Within that circle, tiny creatures drifted, translucent, thread-thin, alive like floating handwriting. He watched them for a few strokes and felt calmer. The world, even when obscured, still had its details. He kept rowing until the mist thickened enough that the oars began to sound different, less water, more silk. He paused, lifted the blades clear, and let the boat drift. The lighthouse beam behind him passed through the fog in long, patient swaths. For a moment, he was inside a slow-turning clock, each sweep a soft reminder that something reliable still held. He listened. He had learned, over 12 years on the island, that the sea will tell you when it wishes you to stop and when it wishes you to go on. It tells you by changing the pitch of its breath. He waited for the breath to decide. The mist cooled his face. He could smell salt and a trace of pine again, those impossible trees that belonged to somewhere else. "Who are you?" Elias said softly to the unseen shore. His voice didn't carry far, the fog folded it gently and set it down beside him. The light on the horizon, the one not his own, continued its rhythm, steady, patient, untroubled. It did not move closer, yet he sensed closeness, the way one senses a room's occupant even when one cannot see them. He dipped the oars once more and pulled. The boat responded like an old friend who had been waiting for a cue. When the mist thinned again, it did so from above, the stars reappearing like sparks in a cooling forge. Elias found himself beneath a wide gap in the fog, a window punched into the sky. Through it, the constellations sharpened, and he recognized one he hadn't looked for in years, Orion, low and purposeful, tilted as if in mid-stride. He followed the line of its belt out toward where the sea met the black. The pulsing light sat near that line, almost tucked beneath it, like a quiet note in a familiar melody. He rode on, and as he did, images rose unbidden, not memories, exactly, but scenes that felt borrowed and tender. A child's hand trailing along a fence, catching splinters of sun. A kettle whistling in a kitchen where a window was open to rain. The narrow wrist of someone tying a knot with careful fingers, the knot held against their lip for leverage. The smell of a woolen scarf just taken from a drawer. Elias experienced them the way one experiences a scent in the dark. He could not name their source, only the feeling they brought. "Home," said the feeling. And yet not his. He paused. The oars hung still and wet. Where do these belong? He wondered. The lighthouse beam made its slow-telling arc behind him. In its passing, the boat threw a brief shadow on the water, then softened back to glow. He looked ahead, the mysterious light did not waver. He realized that he had been expecting it to play tricks, to vanish, to split into two, to speed away, to reveal itself as a star. It did none of these. It simply kept time with him, as if keeping him company. He dipped the oars again and felt a change, not in the water, but in his arms. They remembered a strength he had not asked of them in years. The rhythm came easier now, and he fell into it with gratitude. He began to hum, a sound so low and even that at first he didn't notice it was a melody at all. Nothing recognizable, just a friendly line that matched the boat's cradled movement. A breeze returned, faint, from the north, with that pine-tinged whisper. Elias lifted his face to it. The fog pulled back a few more paces, and the sea darkened into a color like plum skin. He kept rowing. The lantern's circle shivered and kept. There came, after some distance, the smallest of ripples across the boat's path. He felt it rather than saw it, a seam in the water where two quiets met. The hull passed over the seam. A coolness climbed up from the keel, then dissolved like a thought he couldn't quite catch. He looked down. The sea was ordinary again, if the word ordinary can apply to something that is always moving, always speaking in hushes. The compass, forgotten for a while, nudged at him from his pocket. He took it out, thumbed the lid, and watched the needle quiver, settle, wander, settle, as if it too were breathing fog. He laughed under his breath. "All right," he said gently, and closed it again, returning it like a sleepy bird to its nest. For a time, he allowed the boat to coast. He rested the oars across his knees and leaned back, letting the night take his weight. Across the water, the light pulsed. He noticed a detail he hadn't earlier. Now and then, between pulses, there was the softest glow, a thin memory of light, as if the source couldn't help but emit a residual warmth even while waiting. It reminded him of the lighthouse lens after he'd doused the flame, how the glass would hold the day's glow for a few minutes, reluctant to let go. "Are you like us?" he asked the horizon, only half joking. "Do you keep light the way we keep breath?" His eye drifted up. A streak crossed the sky, a meteor, brief and certain. He followed it to where it dissolved. He thought of writing all of this down later and wondered what words he would use. He didn't have names for most of it. There were feelings, and there were descriptions of the sea, but whatever happened between the two, the place where light struck water and became something like a message, that had no precise language he knew. He reached for the oars again, then paused. There it was, a sound unlike the others. Not gull, not water, not wind. A bell. Far away, faint enough to be imagined, the kind of sound that could be a trick of memory. He held his breath. The mist around him paused with him, or seemed to. Then, there it was again. Two notes, not perfectly tuned, humble and certain. A harbor bell. A boy? Or something carried by wind from shore. "Hello," Elias whispered, as if someone had knocked softly. He rowed toward the sound. The light ahead agreed by continuing to pulse. For the first time since leaving, he felt a touch of hurry in his arms, not urgency, exactly, but anticipation. He tempered it, returning to the slow rhythm. The sea forgives slowness, it is suspicious of haste. The bell did not ring again for some time. When at last it did, the mist around the boat had thinned enough that the horizon gained a line. A dark filament. A suggestion. He blinked to clear salt from his lashes. The filament became a smudge. The smudge became a faint geometry. "Sure," said the body, before the mind bothered to name it. He kept his strokes even. The lantern's circle widened on the ripples ahead. The smell of pine grew clearer, not sharp, not resinous, but old, wood that had known winters. He tried to place the coastlines he knew within rowing distance of the island. None fit? The nearest harbor was miles farther south than this line suggested, the small inlets to the north were stony and treeless. Unless the wind was playing tricks and his sense of the world was smaller than the world itself. The light pulsed again, brighter, closer. And then it shifted. Not away, but upward, briefly, as if lifted by a hand. The beam stretched, then dipped back to its patient place. Elias could not help the way his heart lifted with it. He answered without thinking, angling the bow lantern up for a moment so that his little flame drew a taller oval on the mist. Then he set it back. The horizon light returned to its ordinary rhythm, as if satisfied that he had understood. "Thank you," Elias said aloud. To the light, to the boat, to the night that had arranged such a soft conversation. He passed another seam in the water, this one announcing itself with a scatter of silver just beneath the surface. Fish, small ones, traveling as a thought travels, all together, a single mind manifest in many bodies. They clicked faintly in the dark, tiny conversations of their own. He watched them pass beneath the bow, felt, for a fragile second, included.
Tone like iron that had stood in salt for years. He imagined a buoy with a crown of barnacles. He imagined a jetty built of patient stones. He imagined, for reasons he couldn't name, a wooden pier lit by lamps hooded against wind. None of these images felt entirely right. Each arrived like a memory from a book he had read long ago and loved without remembering why. The shore grew clearer, though not by much. The night kept its kindness and did not reveal more than necessary. A line became an edge became a suggestion of slope, as if land lifted itself out of the sea with decorum. The pine scent opened like a page. Elias let the boat drift for a few breaths, the oars a quiet V across his knees. The horizon light pulsed, then paused, a longer pause this time, almost a held breath. He waited with it. In the pause, he heard again the sound of water against wood, the tick of the lantern, his own small inhale. The light returned, steady as ever, and within its return there was the sense, not a sight, not a sound, but a sense of welcome. He eased the oars back into the water and gave 2 slow strokes. The boat answered. A shape resolved to the left of the light. A low structure, perhaps, or a rock shouldering the tide. The bell rang. The sea breathed. He tasted a faint sweetness on the air, something like heather after rain, something domestic hiding inside the wild. A shadow moved between his boat and the horizon light, slender, vertical, brief. He stopped rowing. The shadow did not repeat itself. Perhaps a mast, perhaps the leaning of a gull on a windless night. He listened harder. Once, twice, a soft knock, as of rope against wood. He allowed himself one small thought: I am not alone out here. The boat slid on. In the next breath, the pulse on the horizon went still. It did not vanish, it became a quiet glow, steady now, unblinking. Elias did not like the change at first. He had grown used to the rhythm, to the company of its beating. But as his eyes adjusted, he understood that the stillness was not withdrawal, it was invitation. A light that had said in pulses, I am here, was now saying in constancy, come closer if you wish. He answered with a soft pull of the oars, then another. The boat turned by a degree or two, aligning more precisely with the glow. The lantern's circle rocked and steadied. He could make out now what might have been a shoreline, darker darkness, a slope of night against night. He heard the bell again, once, low and patient, and then a new sound, footsteps on wood. Not near, not clear, but present, like someone crossing a small distance with unhurried care. Elias felt no fear. He noticed this with a kind of gratitude. He had expected, somewhere in this crossing, for the old animal caution to rise. The island had not made him brave so much as it had made him quiet. But the quiet now made room for welcome. He checked the knots that held the lantern, tightened one that had loosened, and placed his palm against the gunwale. The wood was cool and dry where spray hadn't reached. The grain beneath his skin ran like a map of things he could not read and did not need to. The mist rippled. At last, the shape of a pier arrived out of it, long, low, with posts that leaned outward as if listening to the sea. A figure stood at the near end, or if not a figure, then a kindness of shadow shaped like a person waiting. Elias lifted the oars from the water and let the boat's slow momentum carry him the last yards. The glow that had guided him did not intensify or diminish, it remained calm, like a lamp held at chest height by steady hands. "Good evening," Elias said, and the night brought the words forward for him. He heard them land more than he heard them travel. The figure did not answer, not with words. Instead, it lifted something, a lantern of its own, perhaps, and traced a small arc in the air, a motion that echoed the lighthouse beam, then settled the light again at its side. The gesture, so simple, relieved him of every remaining doubt. Answering gestures had always been the friendliest language he knew. He felt the rowboat kiss the end of a post with a kiss so soft it might have been a sigh. He reached out and caught the rope loop that dangled from the pier. It was heavier than it looked, sea-wet and woven thick. He wound it around the nearest cleat, once, twice, the muscle memory of 1,000 unseen moorings returning to his fingers like a flock to a tree at dusk. He tied the final hitch and patted the knot the way one pats the shoulder of someone who has agreed to stay. "Thank you," he whispered to the boat. He meant it. It had crossed with him, not for him, and he felt the difference. The figure at the pier's edge waited, patient as a lighthouse, the lamplight beside it a steady moon in miniature. Elias lifted his lantern, untied it, and held it at waist height so that his face would not be only a voice. He stepped, carefully, from boat to pier, the wood beneath his boots a series of measured promises. When both feet were on the boards, he felt the land's certainty hum up through his bones. He stood for a breath, then another, letting that certainty settle him. The figure stepped forward, and the two circles of light approached each other until they overlapped, two steady breaths, one space. In that overlap, Elias saw what he had only guessed, a human face, peaceful, not young and not old, lit from below by the habit of holding a lamp for others. The eyes, when they met his, carried that same measured glow, a patience that did not erase curiosity, a curiosity that did not disturb calm. "Welcome," the person said. The voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that reaches just far enough. "You took your time, and you took good care." Elias found his own voice, surprised to hear how steady it was. "I wasn't sure if I was expected. You were seen," the person said. "That will do." They stood together in the soft weather of their overlapping lights. Behind Elias, the sea resumed its ordinary conversations. Somewhere to the right, the bell rang once more, then was quiet. The mist had not gone, it had learned its manners and stood a few steps back, letting the meeting be itself. "I'm Elias," he said. "I know," the person replied, not as a trick, not as a reveal, but as a courtesy, as one might say, "I remember your face from long ago. I keep watch on this side." Elias glanced, instinctively, over his shoulder, where the lighthouse beam made one more, very faint sweep beneath the fog. He imagined the lamp still turning, doing its work without the need for his hand. "And I kept watch on mine," he said softly. The person nodded, once, like a small bell struck gently. "Then we have something in common." They turned, together, toward the path that left the pier. It rose through the mist as a line of darker wood leading into a light that was not the seas and not the lanterns. A diffused, living glow, as if the land itself remembered daylight and kept some for night. Elias thought he could smell bread. He thought he could hear, far up the path, the little hush of trees speaking to one another about the hours. He felt, beneath all that, a very old tiredness untying its knots. "Will you come up?" the keeper of this other side asked, and the way the question rested in the air suggested it would be perfectly acceptable if he said no, that the pier would keep him just as gently, that the mist would keep his secrets, that the sea would rock him back if he wished. "Yes," Elias said. The word sounded like a door opening inward. "Good," the person said. "There is a lamp to tend, and a story to continue." They began to walk. The lanterns cast their small warmth onto the boards, then onto earth. The shore did not announce itself with ceremony. It accepted their steps as if they had always been part of the counting it did at night. With each pace, the pulsing light that had guided Elias here receded from his direct attention, the way an answer recedes but remains true once learned. He did not look back until they reached the end of the pier. When he did, he saw his boat riding the smallest of tides, tied and ready, not eager to leave and not eager to stay. He felt for the logbook at his side, a habit of empty hands, and smiled at his own pocket, light and simple. Tomorrow, he said to the sea, or to himself, or to the day that would come whether asked for or not. The keeper nodded toward the path. There is time for everything, when we let the night tell us how. They walked on, into the soft-breathed land, and the sea, pleased, resumed its song behind them, the same song it had always sung. Now with a new verse the path rose gently from the pier, weaving through low dunes where the grass whispered like water in sleep. The mist moved with them, never fully gone, but thin enough now to let shapes appear, the outline of pine trees, the faint suggestion of rooftops beyond. Each step Elias took pressed softly into the damp earth, leaving no trace behind. The air smelled of salt and soil, and underneath it all, a sweetness he couldn't place, something like baked apples or old cedar. The keeper, the one who had met him on the pier, carried the lantern with the steadiness of someone who had done so all their life. They didn't speak for a long while, and Elias didn't mind. Silence had never frightened him, it was how he had lived for years. But this silence felt different. Not the emptiness of being alone, but the fullness of things waiting to be named. They reached a small crest where the land opened into a clearing. The mist hung low here, swirling around what seemed to be a cluster of small stone cottages. Each one had a light in its window, not bright, but soft, like the steady glow of coals resting after a long fire. The roofs were moss-covered, the walls dark with age. Yet nothing felt abandoned. The air itself seemed to hum with quiet life. Elias stopped. I didn't think there were settlements this close. There aren't, said the keeper, voice gentle. Not on your maps. Elias turned to look at them properly for the first time. The keeper was neither young nor old, though the lines around the eyes hinted at both laughter and long waiting. The lantern light made the eyes hard to read. Were they gray, or blue, or just reflections of flame? Their coat was simple and sea-worn, and the scent of smoke clung faintly to it, like someone who had spent a lifetime near hearths. Where am I? Elias asked. The keeper smiled faintly, as if the question itself were expected. That depends on which light you followed. If it was ours, then you're home. If it was yours, then you're lost. And if you can't tell the difference? Here they paused, the smile deepening just slightly, then perhaps you're exactly where you need to be. Elias let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That's not an answer. It's the only kind we have, said the keeper, and started walking again. They passed the first of the cottages. From inside came the sound of slow movement, a chair creaking, a kettle being lifted, a faint hum of a tune that seemed to follow the rhythm of the sea. Elias glanced through a window and saw only lamplight moving against the wall, as if someone had just left the room but would return any moment. Who lives here? He asked quietly. The keeper didn't stop walking. Those who remember. Those who are remembered. Elias frowned. Is this a village? Something like that. It's where the lights go when they tire of shining alone. He looked toward the houses again, and something in him stirred, not fear, but a strange familiarity. The windows, the slant of the roofs, even the way the fog caught the corners of the walls, it reminded him of somewhere, though he couldn't name it. Perhaps a place from his childhood. Perhaps from a dream. They reached a small square at the center of the cluster. A well stood there, built of smooth stones and draped with climbing ivy. Beside it, a bench faced outward toward the sea, though from here the water was hidden behind mist. The keeper placed their lantern on the stone rim of the well and gestured for Elias to sit. He did. The bench was cool and solid beneath him. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence here was thick, not oppressive, but rich, layered, like the quiet of a library or an old church. Finally, the keeper said, "Every night, we watch the sea. We keep the lights. We send them out. Sometimes they return. Sometimes they don't." Elias nodded slowly. "And I followed one back." "You followed one that called to you," the keeper corrected. "Not all can hear the call. Most see the light and think it's just another star." Elias stared down at his hands. They looked the same as they always had, but he felt different, as if his edges had softened somehow, as if part of the sea still lingered beneath his skin. "Who sent it, then? The light I saw?" The keeper tilted their head. "Maybe you did." He looked up sharply. Yes. The lights answer memory, desire, regret. The sea carries them, but it doesn't make them. It only delivers what's been kept waiting." Elias leaned back, the words sinking slowly into him. Could a man signal himself? Could the longing to be found become its own lantern across the dark? He thought of all the nights he'd stood at the top of the tower, watching nothing but his own reflection in the glass of the lens. How many times had he wished, quietly, that someone, anyone, might be watching back? He rubbed at his temple. "You make it sound as if the light feels. It doesn't," the keeper said softly. "But it remembers, and remembering is a kind of feeling, isn't it?" They rose from the bench and began walking again, this time toward the slope behind the cottages. The air grew warmer the higher they climbed, and Elias realized the mist itself seemed to glow from within, not bright, but alive. Tiny motes of gold drifted lazily in the air, like sparks that had forgotten to fall. "What are those?" he asked, watching one settle briefly on his sleeve before dissolving into light. "Fragments," said the keeper. "Pieces of what people forget. Forgotten memories, forgotten kindnesses, forgotten names. Sometimes even forgotten fears. The sea brings them here to rest." They reached the top of the slope, where a large wooden structure stood, not quite a tower, not quite a hall. Its shape reminded Elias of the lighthouse, but wider, and built from pale timber that shimmered faintly in the mist. Its windows were narrow and tall, and from within, a warm amber glow pulsed softly, slow, breathing, alive. "This is where we keep what's left," the keeper said. Elias followed as they pushed open the door. Inside, the air was thick with quiet. Rows of glass lanterns lined the walls, each one containing a small floating light, some white, some gold, some faintly blue. They hung at different heights, suspended from threads so fine they were nearly invisible. The room hummed softly, a chorus of subtle resonance, as if each lantern was singing its own small note in harmony with the others. Elias stepped closer to one that glowed pale green. Inside, the light shimmered gently, forming brief shapes, a hand, a face, a wave, before dissolving again. He felt a chill, though the air was warm. "Their memories," he whispered. "Not exactly," said the keeper, standing beside him. "They're what remains after memory fades, the warmth of something once held dear." He watched another lantern. The fire crackled softly, its glow painting the walls of the small stone cottage in amber tones. Elias sat wrapped in a wool blanket, his wet clothes hanging near the hearth to dry. The keeper had given him a cup of broth, simple, warm, and somehow sweeter than anything he had tasted in years. Outside, the night had settled into a deep calm. Through the open window, he could hear the low sigh of the sea breathing against the rocks. Every few moments, a faint beam of golden light crossed the horizon, the same beam that once belonged to his lighthouse. He watched it in silence, his thoughts drifting like tide foam. The beam did not make him ache with longing, as he expected it might. Instead, it filled him with something quieter, gentler, the feeling of being understood. "You're thinking about them," said the keeper, sitting opposite him. Elias nodded, About whoever took my place. The keeper smiled faintly. The sea has a way of finding hands for the lamps that need them. He looked back at the window. I always thought I'd die on that island. I thought if I just kept the light long enough, it would mean something. It did, said the keeper. It meant someone could see their way home, even if that someone turned out to be you. Elias's eyes softened. Do you think the light called me because it was tired? The keeper considered this. Maybe not tired. Maybe ready. Lights know when it's time to change guardians. You didn't fail it, Elias. You finished what it asked of you. The words settled into him like embers finding their place. For the first time in 12 years, he felt no need to keep watch. Later that night, when the fire had burned low, Elias stepped outside. The air was cool and clear, and the stars hung close, so close he felt he could touch them. The cottages slept in their quiet glow, only a few windows still carried light. Down the slope, the sea stretched silver under the moon. He could see the faint outline of the old pier where he had arrived, and beyond it, his rowboat resting gently against the tide. He walked toward it, not hurried, not hesitant. Just steady. The earth was soft beneath his feet, each step guided by the rhythm of waves. The keeper followed, their lantern swaying softly at their side. Neither spoke. When they reached the pier, Elias stopped at the edge and looked out over the water. The horizon shimmered faintly. The light of the distant tower swept slowly across the sea, touching the mist in soft strokes. Someone's there, he murmured. Someone's tending it, yes, said the keeper. It never stays empty for long. He let out a quiet laugh. I used to think that was the hardest part, the waiting, the loneliness. But now I wonder if the light was never lonely at all. The keeper tilted their head. It wasn't, you were. He nodded, accepting the truth. The keeper placed their lantern beside his boots and leaned on the railing. Do you know what happens when a keeper finishes their watch? Elias looked at them. You tell me. They become part of the current, the keeper said. The tide carries what they've learned, their patience, their hope, their kindness, and leaves it for the next who needs it. That's how the light remembers. He smiled faintly. Then I suppose I'll be a quiet current, you already are. They stood there together, watching the moon trace silver paths across the sea. Then, from somewhere deep beneath the water, a faint glow began to rise. At first, Elias thought it was the moon's reflection, but the light moved differently, deliberate, spiraling upward like smoke made of stars. It broke the surface in a slow bloom, spreading ripples of gold that reached all the way to the shore. Elias stepped closer. What is that? The keeper's voice dropped to a whisper. The sea returning what you gave. The glow drifted toward them, soft and breathing. When it reached the pier, it lingered just below the surface, a cluster of light, small as a lantern flame, yet powerful enough to make the water shimmer. Elias knelt and dipped his fingers into the glow. It was warm. Alive. The light pulsed once beneath his hand, then separated into countless smaller motes, each one floating upward into the air. They rose around him like fireflies, their movement slow, reverent. The keeper watched silently as the lights gathered in the sky, forming a soft arc above the sea, like a bridge of stars stretching between the island and the shore. Elias felt tears in his eyes, though they didn't fall. It's beautiful, he said. It's memory, replied the keeper. Everything you gave to the sea now shines where others can find it. He watched as the golden arc shimmered, then began to fade, the motes scattering into the night until only the reflection of the lighthouse beam remained. Will it always be there? He asked quietly. For as long as it's needed, said the keeper. Elias turned toward them. And what about me? What happens to a keeper when there's no more light to tend? The keeper smiled, a soft sadness in it. Then you rest, and when you're ready, you take up a new one. He looked out at the horizon again. Do you mean another lighthouse? Not always. The keeper's gaze followed his. Sometimes it's a person. A life. A moment that needs watching over. The shape of the light doesn't matter. Only that it's kept with care. He thought about that for a long time. The sea murmured. The moon drifted higher. And in the rhythm of the waves, he began to feel something returning. Not duty, not longing, but readiness. Perhaps the keeping was never about the tower at all. Perhaps it had always been about learning how to notice what still shines, even when no one else is looking. They walked back from the pier together. The village was asleep now, its windows dark except for one faint glow from the hall of lanterns. Elias glanced toward it and saw, through the tall windows, that some of the hanging lights were dimming, peacefully, as if closing their eyes. But others had grown brighter, fed by something unseen. He felt a quiet understanding bloom in his chest. The ones that brighten, are those the lights that find their keepers again? The keeper nodded. Yes. When someone chooses to remember, even for a heartbeat, a light wakes. That's how we keep the world from forgetting itself. They paused at the path that led to the bluff. Elias looked up toward the hill, where the first faint trace of dawn was beginning to touch the sky. It's almost morning, he said. The keeper smiled. It's always morning somewhere. When the first sunlight broke over the horizon, Elias was standing alone on the cliff where he had watched the sea the day before. The world was quiet but awake, gulls turning slow circles in the gold air, the tide brushing against stone. He could see the lighthouse beam fading as dawn took its place. A single reflection of light crossed the water one last time before disappearing in the sun's warmth. Elias felt no sadness, only completion. The light was never lost. It had simply moved on. He sat on the grass and let the sunlight rest on his face. For the first time in years, he felt weightless, not because he had left something behind, but because he finally understood he didn't need to hold it so tightly. He stayed like that for a while, until the keeper joined him. They didn't speak at first. The morning spoke for them, the sound of waves against stone, the far-off call of birds, the rustle of grass in wind. Finally, the keeper said, "The tide is changing." Elias turned. "For me? For you," the keeper said. "There's a boat waiting. The sea wants to show you the rest of the way." He rose slowly, brushing dew from his sleeves. "And you? I'll keep watch here. There are still lights learning how to shine." He nodded, a quiet gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you for meeting me at the pier." The keeper's smile was steady. "No one crosses alone, Elias. That's the first rule of light." The boat waited at the shore, the same one he had arrived in, but different now, its wood clean, its rope newly tied, its small lantern glowing with a soft golden flame. He ran his hand along the edge. It felt familiar, alive. He stepped in, untied the rope, and pushed off from shore. The water took him gently, the tide guiding without urgency. The keeper raised their lantern in farewell, and Elias lifted his in return. Neither waved. They simply watched until distance turned them into small shapes framed by light. As the boat drifted outward, Elias felt the world expand again, the sea stretching wide, the sky deepening. The air was bright and endless, filled with the smell of salt and promise. He rowed only once or twice before realizing he didn't need to. The current carried him easily, the oars resting beside him like quiet companions. The sun climbed higher, scattering coins of light across the waves. He watched them dance and thought of all the nights he had spent trying to keep a single flame alive. Now there were thousands. He leaned back and closed his eyes. The sea hummed beneath him, calm and certain. Somewhere in that rhythm, He felt the echo of the bell from beneath the waves, one low, final note, neither beginning nor end. And then, softer still, the whisper of the keeper's voice carried by wind and water alike. "Wherever there is light, there you are." Elias smiled. "Then I'll never be far." As the boat drifted farther from shore, the horizon ahead began to shimmer, not with the beam of a tower, but with daylight itself, stretching open. He watched it for a while, the reflection moving like breath over glass. He reached for the logbook beside him. Its pages were dry again, though he hadn't dried them. On the first blank line, he wrote, "Day 1, no tower. No duty. Only the keeping of what I've learned." He closed the book, set it beside the lantern, and let the rhythm of the water take him. The light on the bow flickered once, twice, and then steadied. The sea carried him onward, not home, not away, but into the kind of stillness that means both. The waves sang softly, a hymn for keepers past and those yet to come. And above it all, the horizon glowed, not as a destination, but as a continuation. When night came again, somewhere far behind him, a new light appeared on the opposite shore, faint, young, but certain. Someone had found the courage to tend it. And somewhere within that glow, unseen but deeply known, a quiet current moved through the sea, a remembrance, a promise, a presence. Elias closed his eyes and listened. The waves folded around him like hands. The sea whispered one last time, "Rest now. The light keeps itself." And he did.